He's a husband, a father of 6, a former student pastor, former high school athletic director, former college basketball coach, and college basketball and baseball player, super athlete. He's an entrepreneur, a leader of leaders. He loves Jesus, and I think he's a pretty cool cat. You're going to meet him next on 41 Strong. Hey everyone, welcome to 41 Strong Podcast. Chuck Tate here in the Widecast Studios, downtown Peoria, Illinois. 41 Strong is a podcast that delivers encouraging scriptures and stories to help people like you hold on and stand strong. Well, today is episode 159, and in the studio is my friend Jay Bruer. Jay, welcome to 41 Strong.
Man, it is great to be here, Chuck.
Yeah, man.
I enjoy catching your podcast, and we were just discussing, I have some family that's already been here.
Yes.
So it's great to finally, get into this seat.
Make it on as well. All right, so maybe we'll bring you on back for the second time before Dave and Scott. Maybe.
I think you're going to want to after this.
So if you've been listening to 41 Strong for a while, you may recognize Scott Mendenhall, Dave Jane, both brother-in-laws of Jay. But man, Jay, we were talking a couple weeks ago at our son's basketball game.
Yeah.
Christian Center, our sons were playing each other, and just a fun game. So I'm glad that you made it over.
Yeah. Well, that was a heck of a game. That was probably one of the best Christian Center games we've seen. Both boys. I have 2 boys playing. Your son was playing. They were going at it, a bunch of school friends and all that. But really competitive, high energy.
Yeah, and you guys stormed back, and didn't we go to overtime and you win in overtime?
I know we came. I don't remember the final, but we did end up pulling it out. It was a very close game, though.
Yeah, we won't talk about that. Well, hey, speaking of basketball, I mean, obviously you're a basketball player. You coach college basketball, and right now Peoria area it's a basketball town. It's kind of going crazy. Bradley Braves are going back to the big dance.
Yeah.
Last year they won the Missouri Valley Championship, Missouri Valley Conference Tournament Championship. Of course, Dave Snell, the voice of Bradley, was on 41 Strong. So what's your thoughts about Bradley going back to back?
I love it. I mean, as a coach, you just kind of watch other coaches, and I don't know Coach Wardle well, but just seeing what he's been able to do with the culture and the excitement and the energy, and really just credit to him and then the guys on the team, the way they play. And I know they've dealt with some injuries this year and things like that, but pretty exciting for this town, for Peoria. Pretty exciting to see them have success and then follow that back up with another year. And so I'm an Illinois fan too as well, so just kind of the state of basketball across the state you keep track of. So excited to get into March Madness, and it's crazy to think, that a team from Peoria and they get to go shake it up. So it's fun to see that culture growing and developing, and just wish him the best. And I'll throw a little shout out to my buddy Abe Zeller over in Roanoke, who just won last night on a last second kind of shot and free throw, I think, by Jake Weber, and they end up they're headed to state Friday, so they'll play at 1 p.m. in the Final Four. So pretty cool.
At Carver Arena in Peoria.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so people from our church were there, and yeah, man, quite a lot of basketball.
Yeah.
So, and obviously you've had a lot of basketball.
And I'd feel remiss if I didn't, because I coached at Peoria Christian. I'm an alum. And I do have to shout out, after all that with Roanoke, I got to shout out Jason Persinger, back-to-back regionals over there at Peoria Christian as well. I know they fell a little bit short in the sectional championship, but first time in school history, back-to-back regionals for Peoria Christian as well. So well done for Coach Persinger and his boys over there.
And he also has been on 41 Strong podcast, talk about leadership and basketball and coaching. And obviously credit to Dave Reynolds, the athletic director of Bradley, who brought in Coach Wardle, and they have worked really hard together to change the brand, to rebuild the culture, something that you've experienced. So let's talk a little bit about maybe culture and leadership. But before we do, why don't you share your story and introduce yourself to those who aren't familiar with Jay Bruer?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Peoria area pretty much entire life. Was a Washington kid, and went over to Peoria Christian in high school. And so that was where a lot of my athletic experiences grew as well after Washington sport growing up. But currently married to Sarah, was Webb, but Sarah Brewer. and it'll be 20 years in June.
Wow, congrats.
So, yeah, I don't, where does all that time go? But it's been, certainly challenges along the way, but wouldn't trade it. It's been beautiful. And we have 6 great, amazing kids. Our oldest is 13, and they go down to 3. So 13, 11, 10, 7, just turned 6, and 3 years old. So we have a house full.
Is it hard to remember that?
No, but I work on it quite regularly.
Okay,
so like you gotta, I don't know. I just want to be. When people look at me and say you have 6, it's like they're like, you're crazy. So if I found I can follow up with the ages, like, wow, this guy, but that's about all I might, get right. I don't know, but it's a lot of fun. But I spent most of my life in the sports arena, coaching. I played baseball and basketball in college. I coached at the collegiate level at a couple different places. The most recent would have been just down the road at Eureka College. And then also coached high school basketball at Peoria Christian. So tons of time in the athletic realm. In between there, did a little bit of student ministry down in Florida. As you mentioned, my brother-in-law, Scott Mendenhall, so I was with him for a couple years. So along the way, a lot of Christian culture or ministry opportunities. And currently, over the past year and a half, we left Peoria Christian to pursue business and just entrepreneurship, and felt like God is just leading us into a completely different path or adventure. And so we don't have it all worked out, but exploring different avenues there to see how we can leverage the marketplace for ministry. We want to develop business and creative ideas, and as we do that, we'd like to be able to leverage that resource to produce ministry opportunities for ourselves, but also others around the world. So that's what we're into right now, and don't exactly know where it's going, but that's what we're up to.
I love it. Well, you were on staff at Potential Church,
yes,
South Florida. So are there any misconceptions out there about mega churches? I mean, it was a mega church.
Yeah, it's huge.
Big church. I'm sure you've learned a lot, and then sometimes people are quick to dismiss mega churches when really they're usually reaching a lot more people than your average church. But are there any takeaways that maybe help shaped you from being a part of a mega church culture? Maybe describe that mega church culture.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question, and I actually enjoy that topic because I think when you get the question like that, and I've had people, and I think I understand where they're coming from, but that's too big for me, or I'm not sure if they connect, and those types of things. And I think those are good questions to ask and to challenge ourselves with. However, I've also found that, man, it's best for me if I learn what it looks like to love you, and that may mean that you're at a smaller church or community and doing great things, and maybe you're a large one or everywhere in between. And we were just kind of mentioning this ahead of the schedule here too, is how do we leverage our strengths, and how do we play together in those strengths? And I think God works through our weaknesses as well, so we can't be afraid of those, and He's gonna really shine through those things as well. But I really learned through that experience. That was my first experience with true on-staff church ministry, and it was 7,000-8,000 people on a weekend and 30,000 on Easter or something like that. Pastor Troy Gramling, incredible leader, incredible speaker. Lots of challenges in a setting like that. But most of those challenges were very effective at honing me and helping me develop as still I look at myself as a young man, but even back then as a young man, as a young leader, and understanding what's on the line. And I think that's one thing, a couple of things that really impressed me, but one is what's on the line. Every time we show up to this building, and it's a church, whatever the name on it is, but it's a church, there's a lot on the line, and that's not said to be a lot of weight in terms of like condemnation or anything like that.
I'm writing that down. What's on the line?
Yeah. There's a lot of opportunity to smile, to shake a hand, to come alongside. And it happens on a weekend most of the time for us in a church setting, right? So realizing that that's significant, and those words or that interaction could be what is part of the lifetime change. And so I think that was a big one. A huge takeaway that I think is a misconception. Some of the most creative, intentional planning I've ever been a part of happened in those creative meetings and planning. So while it might look like this production of a stage and lights and video and all these resources, which I think are amazing things to use, the podcasts, they're huge tools, right? And so the intentionality behind the scenes, that was the wheels turning and the ideas that were being pressed into new ideas and better opportunities to try to communicate this message of the gospel. I don't think it was intended to sacrifice and just say, hey, put tools up there. It was actually leveraging these opportunities and these tools so that people would have less resistance and have an opportunity to be drawn into the invitation of Christ. And I think they did a fantastic job. And you see so many other churches, big and small, doing a fantastic job with that. But I learned to not discount that it was just a big stage. There was tons of
behind the scenes planning and prayer, and preparation,
absolutely.
Intentionality. And I think there are some pastors of smaller churches that are quick to dismiss the megachurch model when week after week they're flying by the seat of their pants. And there's so much we can learn. And me as a pastor of a church of 500, we need to plan further in advance. We need to be more intentional. When you're intentional and you take the time to plan, then the creativity is going to come out of that. You're going to be more effective in the long run anyway. So I love that, man.
Yeah. And that, for me, that pushed me because I hadn't been in a setting to be creative. And I realized, like all of us, and maybe to varying degrees, but we're creative. And so that was kind of my launching pad into like, oh, you can be creative and you can explore what it looks like to bring something into the world that's new and different. And that is the journey we're on now, like completely on the journey of let's see what God has for us to create and inspire and bring other people into a position to know him. So we're just looking at doing it through business at this point.
Man, dude, that's good. I love it. Well, you also said something that I've heard all throughout my life of ministry, and that is when people say, I can't go to this church because it's too big, when really it's up to us as individuals to plug in, to connect. So whether it's a church of 10,000 or a church of 100, we're going to have the same problem if we're not willing to step out of our comfort zone and be willing to connect. I used to serve at Church on the Move in Tulsa. I referred to Seeds Conference, and Willie George was the pastor. Now it's Whit George, his son, and it was a mega church model. And the only way I got to know people was from being intentional and being willing to serve, being willing to plug in. One of the things that we say from the stage at our church a lot is hashtag save people, serve people. And that's how I developed relationships and friendships that have lasted even until today, because I chose to step out of my comfort zone rather than just to dismiss the whole ministry because it's too big.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I just heard someone speaking about this, and this hopefully isn't, well, it's going to get on some toes, but it just very clearly said, hey, alert, it's not about you. And, the world makes it in so many ways. It's about me, and it's about everything that I'm doing and I'm piecing together and my path and my plan. And however I develop that, let's keep it centered here. And I feel like, I've been there. I think I wrestle that most days today, but it's huge to know it's not about me. Now, I'm special, and I've been woven inside of me is a thumbprint or a stamp or however you want to say it, is the illumination of who Jesus is, right? That's my identity. It's inside of me. We're created to reflect him in his image. So that is huge. But in that, I love what you guys are saying, is if Christ has changed me, then I'm out serving and I'm out helping and I'm finding ways to connect. Now, that doesn't mean I don't need you to come along and help me connect and all of that. Not discounting any of that stuff. Sure. What I would encourage us to do is where that fits for you, go and just do that really well. I don't know that we need to tear down what my neighbor's doing on the other side if it looks different than me.
Yes.
I know we have theological debates and we have real things to answer and we have real things to wrestle over. But at the end of the day, the size of this church versus that church or what have you probably is insignificant as to the direction of this is how I can get involved and this is how I can make it about Christ who's in me so that other people can know him. And I'm not the best I'm not saying I got the market on this at all. In fact, I'm far from and learning from so many. But the reality is, man, if I can help be the invitation for someone around me to Jesus, then some of these other things don't matter near as much. They're fun to talk about and debate and figure out. But my point being is the more we focus on that serving opportunity, the better off I think we are.
Absolutely, man. That's good stuff. Well, I just last year I've read it twice already. I read it last year. I read it this year. We're starting a series this week based off this book called "Know What You're For." I don't know if you are familiar with it. Jeff Henderson used to work for Chick-fil-A. Works for Andy Stanley. He's pastor of Gwinnett Church in one of the fastest growing counties in the Atlanta area. And the book is simply called "For," F-O-R. And he says that every church and every organization, because this book is written not just to church leaders but entrepreneurs, leaders of businesses, startup companies. He said you have to ask these two questions no matter who you are. What do I want to be known for, and what am I known for? And they have to intersect, or we're not doing our job. And that's where leadership comes in, and that's where strategy comes in, and that's where intentionality comes in. So all these things that you have learned about leadership, whether it's in a gym or in a mega church or in a small business, the principles are still the same.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they are from even the standpoint of truth. And so they have to resonate the same way, right? If it's truth, if it's biblical, then it's going to resonate no matter what industry or sector. But what that highlights to me is, what are you for? What are you about? And what are you known for? And I think that was where I hit a crisis a couple of years ago. If I can just be kind of authentic and candid, as part of our story to kind of walk away from education or ministry in the normal sense, or kind of what you might think of. I was at a Christian school. I'd been at a church, and that was kind of my whole life. And it came down to, what am I really about? And does that even match up? And the biggest, most significant area of my life was as a husband and as a dad. And it's humbling to say this, but I think it's also a positive thing for people to hear. I don't think it was really matching up. And that was coming out in the coaching aspect. There was a lot of really great stuff at Peoria Christian and as a coach and all of those types of things. Record doesn't define everything, good or bad and all that. We had great teams. We had teams that didn't do so well and all that. But at the end of the day, I think God brought me into a conversation of, this is who you are, not the things that you might have thought or the lies that you've taken on. And I don't need the public opinion to verify that. But to match them up and to see them be whole, so I think integrity, the wholeness of who I am, to see that match. And probably the biggest area of my life was as a husband and as a dad. It wasn't matching up the way that I would talk or say. And it was a challenging decision to step away and say, we don't know how income's coming. We don't know how any of this stuff is going to unfold. But what we know is from this day forward, we want to go down a different path. And so there's so much pain, but a whole lot of beauty that's come out of that within marriage and with our kids and family. And then just even the bigger story is my relationship with Jesus has just been spun around. I never knew it was like this. Yeah. It's such a cool thing. Doesn't mean, again, not without challenge or any of that stuff, but such a different, more curious relationship with him on this journey. So it's been really, really great to walk through that. But like you said, just matching those two up. This is what I'm about. This is what I'm for. And this is what people would know me for. They would know this to be me. And that's been beautiful to see him weave those back together the way that I think it was meant to be in my life, yours, and everybody else's.
Yeah, I love it. And in spite of pushback and in spite of what other people have said, so really your identity and knowing who you are is more important than even knowing what you're supposed to do.
Absolutely.
Because if you don't know who you are,
and that's
in trouble.
I ran headlong into that. I wanted to be, I thought I'm going to win 10 state championships. I'm going to be the best, and all those things were intended to magnify who Jesus was. Yeah. But what I was doing is doing it out of my own strength and muscle, and for years. And honestly, I don't know how this will land with listeners and all that, but honestly, it was a long process to get there, and there were little tweaks and lies along the way. But as it started to implode, it became very, very real scenario for me, like this is not working. And I really got actually pretty angry at God leaving basketball practice, yelling and hitting the steering wheel and the whole deal. It was 2016 December, and I was really upset. I've done all these things, God, and this is what I get. Honestly, I'm done with you. That was my conversation. Yeah. I'm done with you. And in that moment, it was an experience. I don't know how it lands with people, but this is what happened. Yeah. Love and peace flooded the car. Wow. And this was the question that God asked me. And it wasn't audible, but I was very, very clear. When are we going to meet again? When are we going to meet again was the question. And I was just like, I'm done. And then as he just worked, as that just permeated and kind of just dropped deep into my heart, it was like, man, I'll meet with you. If you'll hear that, I got some things to say. Kind of a little arrogant, a little cocky.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, started just really meeting with the Lord and being curious about what he was up to. And it began to transform everything in my life as I was having authentic, real conversations with him about my heartaches and my disappointments. And it disrupted everything. And it was, again, painful, but really amazing to walk through that. And I think the change that occurred there was what we're kind of alluding to is, who am I? I was living out something I wanted to be and going for, in essence, so people would recognize it. And then I was going to talk about Jesus. And that wasn't exactly how it was going, but essentially. Sure. And then he started to transform and say, no, I'm going to show you who you are, and you're going to live out of that. Man. And then no matter what happens and people say, it's not just a, whatever, not to be like that, but no matter what the public arena has to say, there is a foundation and confidence because I'm telling you now as your Heavenly Father who you are, and you can walk out of that. You can live out of that. You can breathe out of that. You can function out of that. You can create out of that. And so it's changed everything. And I'm like this far on the journey in this. And again, crazy to say, in church my whole life and all that, but I feel like I'm 2 years into something brand new.
Man, dude, that's inspiring. That's good stuff. Well, I know there's probably people watching, listening. So as we get ready to wrap up, I know there are some people that are probably, they feel like they're in the van right now, hitting the steering wheel, and they're struggling, and they're wondering who they are. They're wondering where God is at. Can you pray for that individual, that person right now that's listening, that's watching, that's experiencing what you've already experienced, and now you've walked through it, and they're about to walk through it? Mm-hmm. You do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Heavenly Father, I'm so grateful for who you are. We talked a lot about who we are in terms of how you created us. But man, the other thing is to know who you are. You're a great, great Father. You love us so much. You love us so deeply. You were extravagant, Jesus, in the way that you walked your life, died on the cross, and rose again. And we're thankful that we have Holy Spirit here with us each day to navigate this path. And Lord, I just pray for those that would be listening now who are going, man, yeah, I've done all of this, and where are you at? What's going on? Why does it look like this? I just ask that as they have that conversation with you and have the kind of the courage to have that conversation with you, that you would meet them. Lord, we trust you. We want to be obedient with you to be able to display that trust. But Lord, help us to receive your love, to know who you created us to be. To not look around. It's not that there's bad things all over, but that's not where we gain our identity, Lord. Reveal that to us in the midst of it, allowing us to know who you are and that we can journey with you. And it's just quite an adventure to know and live and breathe out of that confidence of you created us, and we can follow you and we can trust you. So I pray that you would begin to do that in the lives of those who are listening and say, hey, I need you. What's going on? Would you visit me? Would you be with me? Will you walk me through this? In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Dude, thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity.
So good. Well, listen, before we sign off, we're starting something new at the end of each podcast where I'm sharing what I'm reading during the week, because readers are leaders, right? Or leaders are readers, I should say, both. So is there anything that you're reading right now or something that you've read recently that you would recommend to our viewers and listeners?
Yes, the title is escaping me. It's from When Helping Hurts. I think it's called Becoming Whole.
Becoming Whole, okay.
It's about how we serve people and not just serving them out of giving them things and kind of checking it off the list, but what does it look like to serve the whole person? And actually we can do damage when we're not intentional about serving the whole person. So it's breaking down kind of Western civilization in how we would say consumerism and give people more so that they set off to do good. And the reality is there's so much more to us as people. So it's Becoming Whole by Brian Fickert.
All right, Becoming Whole.
It's really challenging me.
Cool, man. I'll have to check that out. The book that I'm reading right now is Creativity, Inc. by Ed Catmull. He is the founder of Pixar, right? It's all about creativity, and now I'm going to mix that with some intentionality, right? Yeah. So there you have it. My guest has been Jay Bruer. Our producer is Mike Sable. I'm Chuck Tate. We will see you next week on 41 Strong.
PeoriaLife.com